Okay, welcome back. We are going to run through the general epistles as the synopsis of the New Testament. Okay, so what are the general epistles? The epistle of James, the two epistles of Peter, the three epistles of John, and the epistle of Jude. Now, these epistles were written by the names of those people that are mentioned in those epistles. Like James was written by James. Okay, Peter was written by Peter. John by John, and Jude by Jude. Okay. Now, James, which James was he? There have been three Jameses. James the elder, he was the bishop of Jerusalem, the first bishop of Jerusalem, disciple of Jesus. Not him. Then we have James the younger. Okay, not him. But this James identifies himself as the brother of Jesus. Jesus had a brother called James, also another brother called Jude. So this person, this James, was the brother of Jesus. He was another son of Mary. Okay, and he later became a Christian. You know, these brothers of Jesus did not become Christians until Jesus died and rose again. And later on, all these people became Christians and they came into the ministry. And that's history, okay? And this James writes this epistle. And this epistle, because James was also a Jew, there is a lot of Jewishness in this epistle. But also, here he's talking about faith and works. You know that the Jews are more prone to works. Work of obeying the law, work of offering sacrifices, work of observing the feasts, and the work of not working on Shabbat. And you know, it's all work based. So when these Jews become Christians, they try to bring the work element into Christendom too much. Now you need works, but it's not all works that's important. We need faith. But then come the Gentiles who come with a lot of faith and they say, we don't need to do anything but just everything by faith. Okay. So the epistle of James is a bridge builder between faith and works. You need faith, but faith without works is dead. Interesting, eh? You need faith, but you can have a lot of faith and no works. Then your faith, although it's there, it's dead. It's like having a corpse. You can't live with a corpse. The corpse is a corpse because it has no life. If that person has life, then that's the person. So faith without works is dead. And then works without faith is useless. I mean, that's understandable. So the book of James is like that. You know, I love the entire book. But one thing is very interesting. It talks about the tongue. Ooh, the tongue is like the steering of a ship. Okay? And it can move the ship. The tongue can light a fire. So these things are there. So if you read the book of James, enjoy the bridge building between faith and works. Okay? Let's go to the first and the second epistles of Peter. Peter, you know that Peter was actually very vituperative when he denied Jesus. Remember, he said, I don't know Jesus. Then he swore and he cursed. But then Jesus was brought back to the ministry in John chapter 21, and Peter became a wonderful servant of God. History says that he was crucified upside down in Rome, and Peter lived a very wonderful life. And earlier on in our series, I mentioned that one of the disciples of Peter was actually John Mark, who wrote the second gospel. Okay, Peter was a wonderful guy. It was to Peter that God in the book of Acts showed that even the Gentiles can be brought into God's family. In a vision that he saw on the roof of Simon the tanner in the book of Acts in Joppa. And then Peter went to Caesarea to visit Cornelius, and Peter was instrumental in bringing the first Gentiles into Christianity, followed by Paul, of course. And then Paul and Peter had a little bit of a brawl in the book of Acts also, when Peter at times, he was a little bit hesitant to behave freely with the Gentiles in the presence of Jews, and Paul was telling Peter off for that. So those things are there. So if you read these two epistles, the epistles of Peter, you will see a lot of doctrines, instructions, and beautiful things that he was talking about. And especially the epistle of 2 Peter, you will see that he is concentrating on the coming of Jesus, the last days, and things like that. So the first epistle was to people who are mainly in the area of Asia Minor and so on. And his audiences were actually scattered people. And First Peter also concentrates much on persecution. He was addressing people who were going through persecution. So if you read First Peter, you'll see how he's saying, don't worry, endure your persecution because it will produce good fruit in you, so on and so forth. Okay? And then the 2 Peter also admonishes about the last days, and it's interesting. Now let's go to the 3 epistles of John. John, the disciple of Jesus, penned 5 books. The Gospel of John, the 3 epistles of John, and the book of Revelation. Okay? Now these 3 epistles are so wonderful and powerful. So such a lot of theology in 1 John. Theology, all sorts of theology. You find hamartiology, you find soteriology, anthropology, theology, Christology, pneumatology, eschatology. All the logies are there in 1 John. So 1 John is very interesting, very deep. And I preach in Tamil, Sinhala and English, trilingual. So if you go to YouTube, you will see my series on 1 John, and try watching that series, you'll be blessed. Okay? Now, 2nd and 3rd John are tiny epistles, 1 chapter each. 2nd John is addressed to a beloved lady, whoever she was. And that was a message of encouragement to that lady to serve the Lord and keep going, beautiful. The epistle of 3rd John is aimed at a man called Gaius, an elder. And John starts by saying, hey Gaius, I know that you are a spiritual man. You are blessed spiritually, but I want you to be blessed physically, financially, emotionally, in every way as well. My beloved friend, I want you to be blessed in every way. So it's an epistle of blessing. How we can be blessed, we can be happy. Just because we are in the ministry, we don't need to be miserable. We can be blessed. Okay, that's 3rd John. What about the epistle of Jude? Again, I have done 5 sermons on those 25 verses of the epistle of Jude. Just 1 chapter, but it is attacking the heretics big time. Now, there can be 2 kinds of heretics, my dear friends. Those who teach heresy. The first kind are blunt and open. You can recognize them and you know that they are teaching heresy. So you can have your antennas high to detect them and be careful with them. But Jude was not necessarily aiming at them. He was attacking the second group of heretics. Who are they? They are camouflaged heretics. They are in our churches. they are sometimes in our leaderships. And they are so holy and they are so biblical, they are so wonderful, but they have crept through the sideways and they slowly inject heresy. You know, if you have, in Tamil they say, Oru kudam palukku oru tulli visham. If you have a whole pot of milk and all you have to do to contaminate is inject one drop of venom, poison into it, and the entire pot of milk turns to poison. So these heretics Jude is talking about, they come as non-heretics. They'll be apparently sound in their doctrine. They'll talk a lot about Jesus, apparently giving glory to Him. And their worship, their speaking in tongues and their behavior so lovely, attractive. So we are sort of, magnetized to them. And during the course of their teachings, they will slowly inject the sugar-coated pill and we will swallow it without knowing what's in there. And we will give in to those heresies. And that's what he is talking against. So read it. You may not necessarily understand it, but then we are there to help you, and we will unravel the mysteries and the embedded secrecies and paradoxes in those verses to explain. Okay? Friends, we've come to the 5th section, the last section. And that's what? Prophecy, the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation has 22 chapters and it's very hard to understand. But having said that, I want to tell you that if you are to understand the book of Revelation, you need to understand the Old Testament really well. Because, this is how I put it, the book of Revelation is an Old Testament book situated in the New. Okay? So you got to understand the metaphorical language, the symbolical expressions, and the way and style, the symbols, metaphors, allegories, allegorical expressions of the Old Testament. The symbolism, allegorical and metaphorical elements of the Old Testament need to be understood if you are to understand the book of Revelation. If not, you will not understand. Now, I would divide the book of Revelation into 2 parts. Now, when you deal with Revelation, you come across the preterists, the futurists, all these interpreters. Now, people are there in Christianity who are amillennialists, premillennialists, post-millennialists, okay, mid-tribulationalists, okay, and pre-tribulationalists, dispensationalists, all these technological terms to denote these interpreters. And if you ask me technologically, who are you? Suresh, I am a dispensational, pre-tribulational, pre-millennial rapture theorist. Well, it doesn't matter who you are, as long as we believe in the Bible, and the book of Revelation is very interesting. The book of Revelation suggests that we should read it. If we read it, we are going to be blessed. 1:3 says, he who reads it and he who hears it and he who does whatever is in it will be blessed. So just by merely reading the book of Revelation, you can be blessed, even if you don't understand. And if somebody reads it loud and if you hear it, you are blessed. And if you understand what it says and then you start doing the things therein, then you are blessed more. Now, how do I divide the book of Revelation into 2? The first 3 chapters and from chapter 4 to 22. The first 3 chapters pertain to things that have happened and that are happening and that will happen until the rapture. Okay? Chapter 4 all the way to 22, from the time the church is raptured all the way to the new heavens and the new earth. Now that's why I get perturbed when people try to associate things that are happening now to things that are found in Revelation after chapter 4. You know, when they burnt the Cairo Museum in Egypt, all of a sudden some people started to say, that's that pale horse in Revelation. Now we are faced with coronavirus. Right now, many nations are suffering because of coronavirus. And many people would want to call that as one of the plagues in the book of Revelation. No. We have seen the mad cow disease, BSC, remember? Then the bird flu, the swine flu, okay, and many viruses, that virus, this virus, HIV virus, and now it is coronavirus. If we are paranoid over these viruses now, imagine when the Revelation plagues hit, the world is going to be in huge turmoil. Okay? Whatever from Revelation 4 to 22 has not yet transpired. But from 1 to 3 years, many have happened, and things are happening, and they'll happen all the way to the rapture. Now, in the first 3 chapters, in chapter 1, you will see the description of Jesus. John, who reclined on the side of Jesus, now this time falls at Jesus' feet as though dead, to see Jesus in his glory now. Okay? And then chapters 2 and 3 talk about the 7 churches. The 7 churches can be interpreted into 3. Number 1, yes, those 7 churches literally existed in those places. Okay, Ephesus, Smyrna, Laodicea, Pergamum, Thyatira, these places are still there in Asia Minor, around Turkey. And those churches really existed. So the primary recipients were the leaders of those literal churches. Okay. The second thing is, these qualities of those 7 churches are found in all the churches in the world today. Thirdly, dispensationalists have beautifully divided the 7 churches into 7 church eras, starting from the Ephesian church era all the way to the Laodicean church era, which will end with the rapture. Now, I have taught this on YouTube. You can go to YouTube and you can start listening to my explanations on Revelation. And whatever you like to agree, you can agree and enjoy. And whatever you like to disagree, go ahead and disagree. This is a book. The book of Revelation is still a book of paradox to me. I have studied that in many places, in Sri Lanka, in England, in America. And people have labeled me as an eschatologist and all that kind of stuff. But still, I think the book of Revelation is full of paradoxes, okay? Because of the large quantum of allegories, symbols, and paradoxes, metaphors embedded therein, okay? And then if you go to chapter 4 onwards, you will see the visions that John saw, both of the heaven and of the earth. Now, when you read, when you try to understand, you will have to really struggle to place the scenario either on earth or heaven. Sometimes some things happen down on earth, some things in heaven. We are introduced to 3 human beings who are antichrists. The political antichrist, the chieftain, okay, and then the spiritual antichrist, the false prophet, and the economical, commercial antichrist, the beast. And because there are 3 antichrists, 3 number 6s are found. 666. Okay? It's not 666, but it's 666, the mark of the beast. And remember the movie in the 70s, The Thief in the Night? Oh boy, how scared we were. And now, in the 21st century, when we look back at that movie, we are like, oh, that's so naive. But if you see what we have today, John saw all what we have today and even more, what's going to come tomorrow, 2000 years ago, and the poor fellow had his limited knowledge to express, and that's why you need to go into the mind of John to understand what he saw. It's very difficult. And then the importance of the Jews, when you go to Revelation 11 and 12, the Jews, how the 7-year tribulation period has been divided into two, and in the first half, the 3.5 years of the tribulation, the Jews will have a wonderful time under two witnesses, and then after that, the Antichrist will try to kill them also, and then we read about the 7-year tribulation period on earth, and how during the 7 years the bride of Christ is up in heaven preparing for the marriage supper of the Lamb. And then in chapter 19 you will see how the marriage supper of the Lamb takes place, after which the Lamb of God, Jesus Christ, comes to earth to execute the final judgment, and the Armageddon war happens, and then Satan is bound for 1,000 years and Jesus rules for 1,000 years. Some of you may not agree with a literal reign of Jesus for 1,000 years. You may be an amillennialist. That's okay, fine. Even if you don't believe, if that happens, you will be there. So there you go. And I believe in a literal millennial period. And so let's not brawl with these things, because Revelation is a hard to understand book, but we should refrain from inducing heresies into it. Okay, so we have to accept each other, whatever standpoint, position we take pertaining to the book of Revelation, we have to accept each other, because you could be right, I could be right, you could be wrong, I could be wrong. I mean, that's okay, but we love the book of Revelation. That's the inspired part of the inspired word of God, and that's wonderful. And then after chapter 19, we see how after the millennium, the devil is loosed for a time being. Then we hear about Gog and Magog. Some of you may want to believe that Gog and Magog are Russia. I don't see that. Anyway, well, who cares? Okay, whatever it is, Gog and Magog comes against the war with Jesus, and then finally this heaven and this earth pass away, and God creates the new heaven and the new earth where we all are going to live. That's the 5th section. Okay, my friends, my New Testament synopsis comes to its end now. Enjoy the New Testament. What are the 5 categories? The first 4 Gospels. Okay, then history, the book of Acts. Then the Pauline epistles, the 14 epistles from Romans to Hebrew. Then the general epistles from James to Jude. And the prophetic section, Revelation. Okay? Apocalypse, if you like it that way. Enjoy the New Testament. Be blessed. And I believe if you haven't watched my synopsis on the Old Testament, which has 16 parts, watch it also and be blessed. God bless you. Meet you in another study. Take care.